Should I call you Dr. Sayegh?
If you want, you can call me Jamil. You can call me Dr. Jamil, whatever works best for you.
Cool. Great. Great. So you tell me a little bit more about your practice and all.
For sure. And I'm just going to, just in case if the name is mentioned during the show, it's Sayegh on the end. The last.
Awesome.
You got it.
Okay, great.
And so a little bit about my practice. And so it's a big picture. It's a combination of a few things. I've been coaching for about 20 years now. And so it's been something that's been so fantastic. I've been doing it professionally for about 6 years, and I coached for free for about 13 to 14 years. And that was such a wonderful experience. And it's grown, of course, over the years. And I do energy work as well. And so I brought that in about 2 years ago, and it's been incredible, the difference that's made in people's lives, whether it's being a health concern they're having or whether it being something mental, emotional, like it's something that's been stuck, a belief they have about themselves and helping them to release it. There's the NLP background that I have, that it's neuro-linguistic programming. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. Have you heard of that before? Yeah. And so combining the NLP with mental and emotional release work, then throwing in the coaching side of it, having the medical background as well, I'm able to work with people in what I call their four bodies, their physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And so it's able to really just connect with them and help them create that transformation that they're looking for. Predominantly when I work with people, most of my clients are in the real estate space. And so they'll hire me because they want to grow and build their business. But what they don't usually recognize at the beginning is they're the real estate expert, not me. But I'm going to help them become a better version of them. I'm going to help them unblock themselves and level up. And one of my favorite quotes is, "The rising tide lifts all boats." You're the tide, and each of the boats is a different area of your life. So you hire me thinking you want to improve this, but I'm going to help improve the tide. And by improving the tide, this goes up. But then people tell me, well, I hired you for my business, but my marriage is like better than it's ever been. And it's not a surprise because it's part of the same work. And so like, that's the big picture of the practice. I just got off like 2 back-to-back calls. And so that's why it took a little bit to get the cameras and everything set up. But that's the big picture of it right now.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. And you're also a coach as well, right? From what I saw on your LinkedIn page.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. I'm a life purpose coach. So
love that.
Help people to live more intentionally and connect to their authentic self. I have a book coming out next month about authentic self.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah. Pretty excited about that.
I love that.
I'm actually trying to start a coaching group and involve more people in that. So I don't know if you've ever done anything like that before in your experience, but I'm just...
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I've done most of my work. Mm-hmm. What was the last thing you said? Trying to get what?
Oh, I'm trying to get some interest together, some interested people together.
Yeah. You know, I've done mostly one-on-one work, but I have done some group stuff, and I have done, you know, whether it be in-person groups or whether it be like a virtual thing that meets on a somewhat regular basis. Like I've dabbled with those, and I'm going to be stepping into those more in the future. But yeah, they're a lot of fun, especially when you have a group of people that they all want to be there. There's some type of clear outcome that the group's going to help them create. Mm-hmm. And it's, you know, obviously fun, you know, business-wise, it's scalable, but outside of that, it's, there's a magic that can be present with groups that isn't always there with one-on-one. And so that can be really fun.
Yeah. I found that to be the case as well. For sure.
And so I am, I'm ready and open for everything. And so however you'd like to begin, if there's anything that you want to say, or if we jump right in, however you do it is perfect with me.
Okay, sure. Do you record podcasts also yourself?
Yeah, so I have a podcast, and then I've been on podcasts for many years. Okay. And so yeah.
Okay, great. Because I was going to suggest we could be guests on each other's shows if you wanted to. That way we could kind of help each other grow our followings or whatever.
I'm definitely open to exploring it. I don't typically have coaches on my show, but
okay.
I'm not opposed to it. Okay. And so I'd like to get to know you more.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. That sounds good. Absolutely. I mean, I started my show probably only about 6 months ago and I just started asking all the marketers who would contact me to talk with me, and I started asking them about why they do what they do, and so that just turned out to be kind of a good way to make use of what was coming to me already. And so I'm trying to build my show. Of course, now I have a couple dozen new ones lined up for the new year and all.
I would love to hear, if you wouldn't mind sharing, what is the audience that you likely are receiving, and what do you think they're needing most and would best serve them?
That's a good question. In my coaching, I get a really varied audience, because I have some people come to me in different lines of work just about purpose, and they don't want to switch careers at all, but they still want their lives to improve. And then I have other people who are interested in career development and want to do new things. And then I also get people who only want to talk about their business and just want to grow their business, and they want help doing that. So, sometimes I end up feeling like I'm wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah.
But I use AI to develop my coaching programs too. I found that helps me brainstorm, to kind of toss ideas around and hone my program kind of as it's developing, in flight, sort of. Come up with more ideas that way too.
I love that. Yeah, just combining the best of the technology. And side note, I love your ceiling. It's like the clouds.
Yeah. It's just kind of a kid's nightlight sort of thing, I guess.
It's so cool. It looks like, I don't know if you, how old are you, by the way?
47.
So you probably remember this, but when I was young, I remember seeing kind of like the Disney movies in the 90s, like the Hercules movie. Uh-huh. That looks like Pegasus and Hercules are going to fly out behind you. This epic cloud right? Flying by.
Yeah, it was just like, it's called Bliss Light or something. I ordered it off Amazon, and it was such a dull space behind me, and it works. Something to look at anyway while I talk, right?
Absolutely. All right, so I'm ready to go when you are.
Well, full disclosure, I had started the recording, so I hope that's okay.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, but so maybe we could, let's say, is this part going to be edited though? And we're going to dive in?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, so I'm ready when you are.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I generally have just been posting on YouTube. I don't really do anything else besides that. So if that's good.
That's good.
Awesome. Well, I really want to thank you very much for joining me today. So you're Dr. Jamil Sayegh. And so maybe you could start by telling me a little bit about how you got started in your career.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you so much for the invitation. It really is a pleasure to be with you here. And for all of our listeners, I believe our time, is one of, if not our most valuable resources. And your time, your attention, you're here and you're spending that time with us. And so I know, I'll speak for myself. I know my intention is to bring as much value as possible. And I hope that this is well worth everyone's time who's going to be here with us today. And so little picture about what I do, and kind of, you said why I do it or how I got started, right? Yeah. And so as Karl and I were discussing, before the recording began, so I do a bunch of things, but big picture, I'm a person who just loves human beings. I love seeing people thriving, seeing people lit up, seeing people in love with themselves and in love with their life and the life that they're building. And I find that most people that I meet aren't in that space yet. And they want to be, but they don't necessarily know how. Or they feel like they have an idea, but they're afraid, or whatever it is that might be blocking them. And so I've made the last 20 years of my life all about figuring out how to help people get from where they are to where they want to be. You know, I wear multiple hats. You know, I'm a naturopathic doctor. I'm a coach as well, but I also do neurolinguistic programming. I do energy healing. I do mental and emotional release work. It's what's the tool that's required in the moment to help the person, help the listener, let's say, overcome whatever challenge that they're having. And so the big picture of why I do what I do. So when I was 19 years old, I was a sophomore at Fordham University. I'm from New York. That's a college in the Bronx. And I was a sophomore in school. And I remember it was about a Tuesday, and I was a part of this pre-med group. And the pre-med group was saying, hey, every year we have to go to the Capitol to fight to keep our funding. Otherwise, they're going to cut the funding from the program. And so we bring a couple students that are getting benefit from the program. Would you mind being one of those students, and you can speak to your experience? And I said, yeah, sure. When do we leave? We leave Friday in the morning, and we come back Sunday night. And I said, I'll be there. So Wednesday rolls around, and I start getting this intuition, this gut feeling that something's not right. Don't go. And like many of us, when you get a feeling like that, I ignored it. I brushed it to the side. And then Thursday rolls around, and now it's getting louder. Thursday morning, something's not right. Don't go. You know, I kept ignoring it. Now it's even louder. Something's not right. Don't go. And I thought, I already told them yes. You know, I already made the commitment. Like, I can't back out now. They're counting on me, whatever else story I told myself. But by Thursday night, that feeling was so strong that it felt like unignorable. And so I sent an email that night and I said, I'm really sorry, like something came up and I can't make it. So Friday rolls around, the group leaves. Friday was a regular day. Saturday was a regular day. Again, they're going to come back Sunday night. So there I am Saturday night thinking, well, I guess whatever that gut feeling was nothing, because I could have been there. Nothing happened. Sunday morning changed my whole life. And on Sunday morning, shortly after I woke up, maybe 5 minutes after I woke up, my father had a brain aneurysm. And for anyone who's not familiar with what that is, imagine a blood vessel in the brain. Think of it like a tube. And imagine it balloons out. And if you're fortunate, you have one of the worst headaches of your life, you go to the hospital, hopefully they take care of it, and you walk out and you're okay. My father wasn't as fortunate. So he has this brain aneurysm. He's in a locked room, and I broke the door to get him out. And if I wasn't home, he would have died. And I wasn't going to be home if I went with that group. And next thing you know, we're at the hospital, and he's in a 4-hour brain surgery, and we're being told it's less than a 5% survival chance. And to give you context, I was 19 years old. My father was 49 years old. He was a family practice physician, and he was also one of the top Elvis impersonators in the world. And music was his life. He was a drummer. When he was younger, he was all county, all state. He had this massive band. He's toured with Elvis's actual band. He's in the Elvis Presley Hall of Fame. Like, he's done all these things, and he's a beautiful soul. And there I was in the hospital, just being told by all these different doctors, nurses, that just to prepare myself, he probably wasn't going to make it. And I was doing everything I could to hold on to just hope. And, you know, you can imagine it was very difficult to hear. And again, that chance of survival, less than 5%. He did survive the surgery. And the neurosurgeon came out to speak with us. And he said it was the worst aneurysm he'd ever seen. And that he's in a coma and he might not ever wake up. And he's in this hypercritical state right now where he could die at any moment. But he's alive right now. And we walk into the room. And there's my dad, this guy I just told you about, doing the Elvis and doing all this life. And he's laying in this hospital bed, unconscious, and he looks more vulnerable than I've ever seen any other human being, without making it too graphic, all the wires and everything. And in that moment, I had this profound sense of regret. And the regret was that I felt like I didn't know my father the way that I could have. It felt like I took him for granted. It felt like I had this running narrative that I'm 19, he's 49, I have time. I've got 30, 40, 50 more years. Why do I have to get to know this man now? Why do I have to connect soul to soul, man to man? My priorities were track and field. I was a runner, school, my friends, video games. Like, that was my life. And so it wasn't, let me hang out with my dad. Like, it wasn't the way I thought at the time. And here I am now thinking that I really blew it, and I'm not going to have another opportunity to like right that wrong and to make it better, because I'm being told he'll die at any moment. I was fortunate that he survived 3 more years before he did pass away. He was in a coma for several months. And in those 3 years, once he came out of the coma, it was a whole process. I took several years off after college to be one of his primary caregivers. And as anyone who is a primary caregiver knows, when you've got someone that's completely dependent on you 24/7, like they can't be alone, that will eventually test you in every possible way, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You'll have moments where you're frustrated and pissed off. You'll have all the stuff. You'll go through the full spectrum of human emotion. And in those 3 years, on the one sense, I had my prayers answered. He became one of my best friends. I got to spend 10 to 15 hours a day with him. We did everything together. Now, he was never fully the same after his aneurysm, and he had short-term memory loss and sometimes became long-term memory loss. He was prone to seizures, and he had 5-minute seizures sometimes in my arms. And he almost died several times in those 3 years. And on the one hand, there was a lot of beautiful moments. On the other hand, there's times where he forgot who I was. There's times where he almost died in my arms, and I didn't have the medical knowledge yet, so I didn't know what to do. And it was a very challenging moment. But I had some of these lessons that came to me along the way that I share with you and our audience now, from a space that I ask you to take on these lessons so you don't have to go through the same experience. And it's coming from this space. I had recognized that every day I was looking at my dad coming from a space of, I can't wait until he's back to the way he used to be, because he was getting a little bit better over time. So the idea was, I can't wait till I get my dad back. But what was that belief doing? That belief was preventing me from being with him as he is right now. And every day, because he almost died so many times, every night when I went to sleep, I wondered, was that the last time I'm going to see my dad? Am I going to wake up and he's not alive anymore? And so I realized, you know what? Dad's alive right now. I'm going to stop convincing myself that he has to be different than he is. And I'm going to just fall in love with this man as he is right now. He's perfect as he is right now. Short-term memory loss and all. And I'm going to just fall in love with that. And my days got so much richer. They got so much brighter when I let go of the expectation and I just allowed him to be who he was. But then I realized, well, my mom, my sister, my friends, my family, everyone I know, this also might be the last time I ever see them. How do I know I'm going to have another day with them? I don't. So I started to bring a level of presence to everything that I did and to every interaction that I had. And all my relationships got so much better. I started feeling so much more peaceful. I stopped resisting like the flow of life. This isn't supposed to happen. That's not supposed to happen. And I just let life be what it was going to be. And I did the inner work to have that harmony with it. And I remember after my dad, in those 3 years, 2 of my cousins passed away. And one was 20 and one was 21. Both were fairly sudden. And if you had asked either man when they were 18, tell me about the life you envisioned for yourself, I promise you neither one would say, I'll be dead in less than 5 years. And like, nobody thinks that. There's a Dalai Lama quote, most people live as if they're never going to die, and then they die having never really lived. And so after the 3 years, my dad passed away, and he was 52, around 52 at the time. And I was at his wake, and it was a 5-hour wake, and over 7,000 people came. And I shook every single person's hand, and almost everyone said, your dad saved my life. And there were people from every walk of life, culture, religion, dress, like anything you can imagine. And they all had something in common, that this man deeply impacted them, and he cared and loved them, and they came to show their respect. And on the one hand, I was humbled. Like, wow, most of these people haven't seen him since he was in his late 40s. What an impact that he had. That's inspiring. But then the other side that came up for me was like an aha moment. It was a realization that I was playing small, that I cared way too much about what other people thought about me, that I was afraid of rejection. And as a result, I was dimming my shine. One of my top 3 favorite words is enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is a Greek word, and it comes from antetheos or entheos, and it means the God within. And when you radiate enthusiastically, you're shining that spark, that uniqueness that is you. But most of us, we wear the mask of who do I need to be normal, to fit in, to be accepted, to be validated. But no matter what that answer is, it's not you. It's not the real you. So most of us wear the mask and we're performing to get the validation. But even when you play that game and you think you win, you lose. Because the people that you think like you or love you, they don't know you. They like and love your mask, who you're pretending to be. And I realized up until that point, I was pretending in many respects. And that moment of 2 of my cousins had passed away, like I shared, and I couldn't tell myself as a young adult, well, you only die when you're old. Well, dad's aneurysm was at 49. My cousin died at 20. And the other one's at 21. Here I am at the time being 21. Right. And obviously people die younger too. So tomorrow's never promised. So why am I holding back? And ever since that moment, life just occurred differently. And I took about another 6 months to a year to be with family. And then I went to medical school in Arizona, and I spent 5 years there. And that, just matured me in so many different ways. And then I was already coaching at that point. And after that, I began doing energy work and helping people to heal. And there was so many inspiring stories that perhaps we can get into if that's relevant for your audience, that people healing from things that doctors said were impossible, people having issues with their brains or cancer or something, and it just going away. And it was so incredible. And then people having emotional challenges, mental challenges, things they've been dealing with their whole life. And we worked together for 5 hours, 10 hours, and it's gone. And I sat there going, like, this was so fulfilling. And I knew from that experience of my dad, every day could be my last. This could be the last podcast I ever get to be on. You might be the last person I ever speak with. And so I'm going to leave it all on the line. I want to show up fully. And so before I turn it back to you, I lovingly challenge our listeners, our audience today, reflect on your own life. Where are you playing small? Where are you holding back? Where are there people in your life that you love and yet you're taking them for granted? You love them, but let's make love a verb. Are you being loving? Because if the last time you interacted with them, maybe you yelled at them or you got into a fight or you're holding a grudge, and then I say to you, do you love that person? You could be angry with them, but still say, of course, it's my daughter. Of course, it's my dad. Of course, it's my friend. But are you being loving? Do they feel your love? And very often the answer is no. And when you realize, even if the answer is yes, we all know you could raise the dose. You could up it. So from that space, if you knew the last time you were going to be with that person was the last time, how would you treat it? Probably differently than the last time you were with them. And so what if you realize every time might be the last time? You're going to show up differently in your life. Because if I ask everyone listening, how much time do you have left? We all have the exact same answer, and that's, I don't know. So why are you playing small? Why are you living like you're never going to die? And if you come from that space, the foundation of my work is helping people to create an extraordinary life without regret. An extraordinary life is a life on your terms, whatever you want that to be, and without regret, because I don't want anyone to ever feel the feeling I had in that hospital room looking at my dad being told he could die at any moment, and me feeling, shit, I could have, pardon the language, but it's like, I should have done things differently. I really don't want the story to end here. And I was fortunate that I had those 3 years. Not everyone is that fortunate. And there's an old, I think it's Woody Allen, it's an old quote, learn from the mistakes of others because you're never going to live long enough to make them all yourself. And so everyone is listening. Some of you might have been through aspects of what I just described. Some of you have been through worse things than that. And some of you can only imagine what it was like, whatever I went through. But we're all on this human adventure together. We all have our stories. We all have our hardships. But it's like, learn from it. Learn from each other. And hug, richer. Make love in so much deeper of a way. Enjoy every bite of food that you take. Like, savor every sunset. Make the most out of life. Like, squeeze the juice out of it.
Yeah, right on. I love that. Thank you for sharing that very personal story about your father and all, too. That really means a lot. I lost my dad in 2019 after a really short fight with cancer, and that really made a huge impact in my life as well. And I think that I had many of the same thoughts and feelings that you're describing, and I made changes in my own life based on the kind of the impact that event had. I was able to stop drinking alcohol completely, and
that's amazing.
I built a gym in my basement, and I started running and working out every morning, and I just realized all these changes in my life that started happening, because I made those choices, and it's hard to to put yourself, to understand kind of, to put yourself back to where you were when you were in that problem state, once you are out of it and have the realizations, like you're saying, to be able to help other people have realizations in their lives like that and make transformations like that. After it happens to you, it just keeps on reverberating reward to me, to be able to help other people like that. So what you're saying really resonates with me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And first of all, I want to just my deepest condolences to you and your family regarding your father, and well done to you for, you giving up. You said drinking, correct, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You
give that up and stepping into working out more, and I'm sure you make him proud every day. And just coming.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. So maybe you mentioned also that some of the amazing transformational stories that you've encountered like that. Maybe you could share one or two of your favorites.
Oh yeah. I've been very fortunate over the years. I mentioned to you before we started recording that I've been in this world for about roughly 20 years, and I've gotten to experience a lot of people, and so it's been so wonderful. One example that comes to mind right now, I'll share an energy work one as well, but one from the coaching side of it. So there was this gentleman that I did some work with, and we did a year's worth of coaching together, and we started with the mental and emotional release work, and he just signed up for a second year together. And when we first began, he had told me, I have crippling social anxiety, and he's a very successful guy. And he also told me, I have a hard time setting boundaries. I have a hard time saying no. My relationship with my spouse isn't what I want it to be. The passion's not there. My relationship with my kids isn't where I want it to be. And even though he was successful in business, it came at a cost, and he didn't feel like he was being himself, and he felt bad about that. And we do the mental emotional release work. We did the coaching, and shortly into it, I get a message from him that he was at a giant party, center of attention, zero anxiety. It was just gone, first time in his whole life. And then over the year, his wife would make these comments about how beautiful their relationship is and how amazing his transformation has been. And the passion came back and all this amazingness was there. And he just sent me a message, like, we're recording this now on January 3rd. He sent me a message on New Year's Day that on New Year's Eve, she had told him, thank you so much for our best year yet. And he was so lit up because over the year, he's transformed in such amazing ways and he's doing the work. But it's as a result of what we're creating together. And his relationship with his kids is better than it's been. He's enforcing his boundaries. Like, he's the best version of him right now that he's ever been. That, to me, whenever I get a message like that, I literally start tearing up. And it's so wonderful because, like I said, I love people. And I love seeing people do well by their own estimation. And he's doing it. And that's touching. Another one that comes to mind is early on in the energy work side. So I'm a Reiki master. Reiki is a form of energy healing from Japan. But I also do Hawaiian energy work. And I combine them with hypnosis because I also do hypnotherapy. And I combine that with guided visualization. So I'm like the utility belt that Batman's got with a bunch of stuff on it. And so I do what I can to I bring it all to the table and what does the person need? And so this gentleman I was working with was in California and I'm in New York. The thing that's fascinating about energy work, and for all of our listeners, keep in mind, just so you get where I'm coming from, and this might be relatable for some people, I had all of the skepticism in the world that you could possibly have to what I'm about to describe until I saw firsthand over and over again that it works. And so energy work can be done in person, hands-on healing kind of stuff. Energy work can be done virtually, and energy work can be done anywhere in the world just through intention. And the fascinating thing about that is you go, how the hell could that work? And it works from like a quantum physics perspective that we're all entangled with each other, basically. And it's a whole long conversation. But to keep it simple, with this story, this gentleman reached out to me and he essentially had all these neurological symptoms. And he reached out to his doctor. He got a brain scan, and it turned out he had multiple aneurysms, like my dad did, but his hadn't gone off yet. And he had multiple strokes that were in the works, about to happen. And the doctors told him they were so significant and so severe, there was nothing they could do. And they literally told him to get his affairs in order, because they said he'd probably have a massive stroke within about 6 weeks. Jeez. And I could only imagine what it would feel like to get a prognosis like that, and to go home where your doctors basically gave up on you. And so he reaches out, and we have this conversation. I tell him, look, I have something that I believe can help. I come from a space that there's no accidents, things happen for a reason. That's my own personal belief. And so from that space, he and I were brought together for a reason. And so I told him that, and he believed that. And he was a very Christian man. And so I came from that framework. And I said to him, do you believe that God brought us together for a reason? And he's like, absolutely. And I said, well, I've been trained in something that you might find very weird. And yet, I think it'll help you. And I told him, you're across the country from me. There's nothing else that I have that's going to be able to help you in that sense, because I'm not there. Like, I can't take your blood pressure. I can't do your vitals. Like, I'm not in person with you from a medical perspective. But I said, I believe we're brought together for a reason. Would you like to talk about what this could look like, as weird as it might sound? And he goes, I'll do anything. And so we had a 45-minute Zoom call, and we did energy work during that 45-minute Zoom call. He felt me touching him, because when I do energy work virtually, in my mind, I'm in the room with you, and I'm imagining you, and I'm working on you. He literally told me, are you on my back right now? And that's exactly where I was. Like, he knew where I was, and he felt me. And then every night, through intention, about 5-10 minutes, think of it like a form of prayer, I was directing energy for him. About 9 days later, he sends me a video text message. He's in the hospital. He's wearing the hospital gown. He's laughing and crying at the same time. And he's telling me they did a brain scan. His brain's completely clear. There's no sign of any stroke, any aneurysm. They have no idea what happened, and they're calling it a miracle. And I just started crying. Like, it was so beautiful to to hear that. Yeah. And I've been so fortunate that I've had several people have experiences like that. Most recently, I had somebody who has a form of cancer that's very aggressive, and his tumor markers dropped by like 80% after a couple days of doing the energy work for him. Wow. And that felt so fantastic. And the way I come from this space is, it's not me. I'm just like, I'm the medium, I'm the conduit. You can call it God, you can call it source, you can call it life, whatever you want to call it. I don't put a label on it, but I open up and it comes through. And the idea, though, is whether it's helping someone in their relationship, whether it's helping someone grow their business. I had a client that we worked together for 3 years, and in our first year, his net worth grew from $0 to $4.5 million. Another guy at the start of our work, he was doing pretty well, but at the end of our work, he was a 50% partner in a $200 million real estate portfolio. And it's like that type of transformation, whether it be a business or a relationship, but sometimes it's like they're just not happy. They're not fulfilled. I've had people that are 8, 9-figure earners, they feel they have a void. They feel like they're not happy at all in their life. And they're like, I have all the stuff that, society said I should be happy with, and I'm not. And at that point, it's more like spiritual in that work. It's more, how do we create the fulfillment? And that's like what you talk about as well. And to me, the success stories are, the why. The foundation is my story with my dad. And the juice of the work is when people have insights. And to me, an insight is when you see something as if for the first time. It's the aha moment. The light bulb goes off, where life occurred to you in one way. And from that paradigm, only certain things are possible. But through the conversation, through the dancing, through me challenging your thinking, through certain questions and things of that nature, you see life in a different way. And from that paradigm, whole new possibilities arise that seemed impossible over here. Right. Yeah. And to me, that's the beauty of coaching. Yeah. And you come from that space, and that's like what, to me, a miracle is. Like, something just didn't seem possible at all for you, and now it seems absolutely possible, and you're actually doing it. And so that, to me, is like the foundation of it. And so that's like, I'll pause there because I can keep going forever. So I'll pause there.
No, that's great. That's great. I love that. I love what you're saying. Please keep going.
One thing I would share then is this. For everyone listening, I think creating hope is a beautiful thing. And this is what I mean by that. So from a medical perspective, many people have heard of the placebo effect. And a placebo, at the end of the day, is you're given something that you would call like an inert substance, whether it be saline, like salt water basically, or sugar or whatever it is. And you compare it to like a drug. But when a pharmaceutical company runs a drug trial, they got to spend a lot of money because the placebo can be 5, 20, 80% or more as effective as the drug. Right. And you sit there and you say, how is it that they have placebo surgeries that they've done where you get a group of people that are told they need a knee replacement given their symptoms and what their x-rays look like and everything, and they get the knee replacement. And then you got another group of people that also have the same symptoms, the same x-ray findings. They're told they need a replacement too. For them, you just literally make the incision, you make a little scar, you make it look like you did something, and you close it. And then you tell them that they got the surgery. And 6 months later, a year later, they have the same or better results as the people who got the surgery. And you sit there and go, how is that possible? Because your mind is incredible. And when you realize that the placebo is essentially you healed because you believed you would heal. Now there's the opposite, and the opposite many people aren't as familiar with. That's called the nocebo effect. The nocebo effect is you think something bad's going to happen, and it's more likely to happen. There was a study they did, I believe it was in a cardiology journal for the heart, but basically people were told that they had cancer, and they did. It wasn't like a lie. They were told they had cancer. But prior to that, they had no sign of any cardiac issues at all. Their hearts seemed to be healthy. But within about 2 weeks of being told they had cancer and that they only had 3, 6, 9 months to live, many of them had all the symptoms of heart failure. And in a way, it's like they lose the will to live. Because when the doctor tells you you got 6 months to live, there's a high likelihood that you'll die at around 6 months. But it's because you believe it. But the thing is that any doctor, specifically an oncologist, cancer doctor, who's been in practice for long enough and has worked with enough patients, at some point, they have a patient that experiences what they call spontaneous remission, where the cancer just goes away, or the disease just cleared up, and they don't know why. So this person seemingly, and there's books and books, so many books. There's a book called Radical Remission if somebody wants to read it. There's another book called Dying to Be Me if somebody wants to read that. These are stories of people who had the most aggressive health conditions, and they woke up one day, or maybe it took a week or two, but it just cleared up. And the doctors are like, this is a miracle. We don't know why. Now, those are outliers. It doesn't happen to most people. But the fact that it does happen, that to me is a sign that keep in mind that nocebo-placebo dichotomy, and you don't want to use that nocebo effect against yourself. So Deepak Chopra's got a really beautiful quote that I love where he says, believe the diagnosis, but don't believe the prognosis. And so you're coming from a space of, yes, given your current condition of your body, this is what you have from a medical perspective. That's valuable to know, because if you know what the diagnosis is, you can treat it in the most effective way possible. But the prognosis is, well, this is what you have. Now, this is how we think it's going to progress, and this is how long we think you have, let's say, if it's pretty severe. The challenge with that is, what's that based on? That's just based on their experience. It's based on statistics. It's based on, for most people, this is what happens. They get this disease, and they don't live that long. Or, there was an oncologist, very famous. He passed away years ago, but his name was Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez, and he was an oncologist in Manhattan in New York City. For most people, if you ask the average oncologist, if you had a patient who has stage 4 pancreatic cancer and it metastasized, meaning it spread to the liver and other places, how long would you give that person to live? The average oncologist would tell you weeks, months, maybe. That's one of the worst cancers you can get from an aggressiveness perspective. This guy had multiple patients have that exact diagnosis 35 years out, and they didn't have cancer anymore. But he was treating them differently than they're treated in mainstream. And so you sit there and you wonder, if this is possible, if certain people have healed from this, maybe I can too. Now, no one gives you the guarantee. I would never pretend to give somebody the guarantee. When I do energy work with somebody, I don't say this is going to work. I don't know. It might work. It might cure you. It might make you just have a better quality of life. It might give you more peace of mind. It'll do something, but I can't promise you anything because I'm not the one doing it. It's coming through, right? And so with that in mind, I just share it from that space to inspire hope that no matter what you're going through, whether it's a health diagnosis, whether it's you lost your job, whether it's you're feeling kind of aimless, purposeless, whoever is listening, maybe you feel lost in where you're at in your life right now, that there's an old expression, this too shall pass. You know, the storm never comes to stay. It always comes to pass. It's always temporary, but in the thick of it, it feels like it's going to last forever. There's a Churchill quote. Winston Churchill said, when you're going through hell, keep going. And it comes from that space. Well, why? Because if you don't keep going, it's like you're in the dark tunnel and you see the light at the end, but it seems far away. If you keep moving, you'll get there eventually. But if you just think it's too far, so you just sit down, well, now you're just in the darkness. And so there's no judgment, and it's coming from a space of you're free to do anything that you believe is right for you to do. And whatever the therapies, the treatments, or whatever that resonate with you, by all means, do that. And arm yourself with that degree of hope that whether you're religious, spiritual, atheist, it's fine either way, but come from that space that there are other people in the world, no matter what you've been diagnosed with, that have recovered from it. There are people in the world, if it's not a diagnosis medically, there's people who've lost their job, they bounce back. There's people who've gone bankrupt, they bounce back, and then now they have more money than they had before. There's people who got a divorce, they lost a child. Anything you could possibly be going through, there's somebody else who's gone through it, and somehow they're happy again later on. And in the moment, I realized I've been through my own versions of it, not pretending to know what anybody else has gone through. My experience of losing my dad is very different, I'd imagine, than your experience of losing your dad. We're all unique in that way. And I respect anyone who's gone through these kind of difficult situations in whatever form they've taken. But the moment you can recognize it will get easier, times will get better, there is hope. That's sometimes all you need to just get through it. And when you've got that, then maybe at some point you reach out to someone like yourself or someone like me and you get some additional support. But yeah, like Robin Williams had a quote that I heard after he passed away. And he had said, I used to think the worst thing in the world was being alone. And then I realized the worst thing in the world is being in a room full of people and feeling alone. And it's coming from that space. So there's people listening who feel alone. There's people listening who feel like they got diagnosed with something and it's almost like they have no choice, like life's taken from them. And when you can take the agency back, when you can empower yourself through your decisions. I remember learning from Tony Robbins. I've done many programs through him and been certified by him in addition to other people. And he was one of my first mentors. Like, I learned about him when I was 15, and that's when I started studying his work. And I remember for those of you who don't know who he is, he's one of the top coaches, motivational speakers, gurus in the world, let's say, in this personal development space. But he has a story. When he was, I think, in his 20s, he gets diagnosed with this really, I wouldn't say really aggressive, but he got diagnosed with a brain tumor. And he was told that was why he's so big. He's like 6'7" or something. He's got gigantism. And doctor says, we got to operate on your brain. And Tony goes, whoa, that sounds like serious. And the doctor goes, it is. And we have to do it like now. Like, we got to get you in surgery as soon as possible. And Tony goes, but I've had this for years, right? Like, why do we have to rush this? Because it sounds like scary. It sounds like I should think about this. And the doctor's trying to push him into it because from the doctor's perspective, it's important. But Tony goes, well, what if we didn't do the surgery? And the doctor was like, absolutely not. But then Tony got a second opinion. Second person said the same thing as the first person. So then he got a third opinion. Third person said the same thing as the first two. But then he got a fourth opinion. And the fourth opinion said, well, you've had this tumor for years, and it's actually shrunk a little bit. Maybe we can just monitor it for a period of time. Now, that person recommended that he take a certain drug. He didn't take that drug because he was skeptical about it. Turns out that drug made cancer worse. So listening to his intuition was a good thing. And then the last person that he spoke to is the doctor that he listened to. He gets his brain scanned like once a year. He gets blood tests multiple times. And now he's in his 60s, still has his brain intact, never got the surgery. Doctors told him if he got the surgery, he would have lost all of his energy. And for anyone who knows someone like Tony, who's on stage like 5 days in a row for 15 hours at a time jumping, that guy losing his energy is a nightmare for him. And so I bring it up because sometimes a doctor can be sincere and they can be sincerely wrong. Somebody can give you a prognosis, whether it's a doctor or whether it's a friend or whether it's a therapist or whether it's, whatever beliefs you have. I don't mean to just make it medical, but because that's part of my background, that's like but this is metaphorical for every aspect of your life. There's what happens to you and there's what you make it mean. And whatever you make it mean is going to be real for you. The good news is that there's other things that you could make it mean. Now, I don't ever mean to discourage you from listening to somebody who has maybe more expertise in a certain area than you do. Those doctors did have more expertise than Tony did about the brain and about tumors. But he just wanted a second opinion, and that's a valuable thing to ask for because there's overdiagnosis, there's treatment that wasn't necessary. It happens all the time. And so when you come from that space, my big picture message here is nobody knows the future. Nobody knows what's going to happen. And so if you can come from that space of, you know what, I'm going to get different opinions and I'm going to find out what does this person think I should do? What does this person think I should do? But ultimately, I have to make my own opinion. I have to make my decision that I can live with. And if I make the decision and it turns out to not be the quote unquote right one after the fact, at least I can say I made it and it was an informed decision. It was a decision based on the facts that I had available to me at the time. And so coming from that space, there's always hope. There's always something you can do. There's always a way to make your life even a little bit brighter. Maybe you're not curing something, but maybe you're making your day better. Maybe you're able to laugh. Maybe you're able to feel like the weight of the world isn't on your shoulders, either at all or as much. Anything you could do starting right now to make today that much better, that's a massive win. And it's like moment by moment, day by day, you get yourself into a new state of mind. You get, yourself into a new state of health and you get your life into a whole different place. But in the moment, it's hard to see that sometimes. And so I just bring that up. All these clients that I've worked with, what do they all have in common? They started not liking where they were at, and then we do our work together, and now they're happy with where they're at. But they had to go through a process to get there, and as dark as their life seemed before they hired me, it got better. And the thing is that whether they hired me or whether it's you or whether it's neither of us and they just do their own thing, life can get better. But you got to believe that first in order for it to get better.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, belief is so vitally important.
Yeah.
I think that our modern civilization thinks that we're the most advanced, and I think that we lost a lot of knowledge from ancient civilization about energy that is just not there anymore in our understanding that used to be. I think it used to be, back maybe in the time of the pyramids. We had other civilizations, I think, on Earth that were much older that had greater understanding.
Oh yeah, if you come from a space of, even if we just take it in modern times, to keep it simple, you've got you have a Western paradigm and you have an Eastern paradigm. Mm-hmm. And obviously there's a lot of overlap and they each kind of influence the other. It's like a yin yang almost, with like the blacks and the white and the whites and the black. But think of it like this. The Western paradigm is more reductionistic. It's more like thinking about it from like a car perspective. The car is not working. What's the part that's the problem? And then we identify the part and we fix the part. From an Eastern perspective, it's more integrated. It's more holistic. And so it's not that one is necessarily better than the other, because sometimes it is valuable to be reductionistic and to fix the part. And most of the time in my experience, it's valuable to look at it holistically and integrate it and all that kind of stuff. But they both have value. But when you're too far into one of them and you're closed off to the other side of it, I think you get into trouble. Yeah. And so from a Western paradigm, like I live in New York. Where are you at, Karl?
Western Massachusetts near Springfield.
Yeah, so we're both on the East Coast, like we're in the U.S. So our culture predominantly is rooted in a Western paradigm. And whether that's about healing or philosophy or health, it's very different. You look at Eastern philosophy like a Lao Tzu or a Buddha or these kind of people, the Tao Te Ching, like these kind of ancient texts, the Bhagavad Gita like in India, Hinduism, that's different than you look at like Aristotle and Socrates and Plato. Now, there's similarities because wisdom is wisdom. But you look at the way we do certain things and it's very different than the way those kind of cultures do certain things. And we have our benefits to doing it the way we do, but we also have problems that come with doing it the way we do. And so just like I have that metaphorical utility belt of tools that I can pull from, if we all did something like that, you know what? I'm going to see that therapist, but I'm also going to work with a coach. I'm going to take that drug, but I'm also going to learn about nutrition and I'm going to eat better. I'm going to exercise, but I'm also going to get a massage because I've heard that's important. I'm going to focus on my sleep, but I'm also going to focus on having more fun. Like each of us is a holistic being. And if you look at whole with a W, holistic, like a circle, like you're this integrated being. There's so many parts to you. If you don't benefit all of them, it's like that old expression, like where does the chain break? At the weakest link. It's the same kind of idea. If you have like a back injury and then you go to lift something and then you re-injure yourself, where do you likely re-injure yourself? The part that's already injured, because that part is like weaker. It can't handle as much tension right there. In that same way, most of us, we live our life and we have like multiple areas that we could be working on that we're not for whatever the reason. And it might be, I'm not happy with my job. I'm not fulfilled with my career. It might be my relationship isn't where I want it to be, or I'm not in one and I want to be one. And it's not working out. It could be a health challenge. It could be my relationship with my kids is not what I want it to be, etc. But you look at each of these areas and they could feel overwhelming because it's like there's so much you could be doing and you create maybe the analysis paralysis of I could be doing all these things to improve my life. I don't even know where to start. So I don't do any of it. But if you just picked one area, and if you just started drinking more water, you probably start to feel better. And then you throw in, maybe I'll get an extra 30 minutes of sleep. Start to feel better. You know what? Maybe I'm going to do this one thing a week that I actually find kind of fun. And then each time you do it, you're creating more bandwidth. You're creating more access to expansion. And so it's like, there's that old expression, how you do one thing is how you do everything. In a similar way, anything you do to benefit the whole benefits the whole. And so everything gets better when you work on any area of your life. And so it's like, what seems like a nice place to start? Just pick one and just begin improving your life in any way possible. Because right now, there's a question I heard from Jordan Peterson, the clinical psychologist, and he's pretty well known now in the world. And he said, there's something he asked his clients, and I'll word it the way that I remember he said it. What's something, in his words, it's like, what's something absolutely stupid that you do on a regular basis that you know you shouldn't be doing, that if you stop doing, things will probably get better for you? And he's like, everyone could probably identify something there. Start there. Stop doing that. And if you just started doing that, because some people have a hard time with the positive side of it. What should I be doing? I have no idea. But what's something that's like hurting you that you know you should probably stop doing? Sometimes that's an easier entry point. We're going to enter the forest metaphorically here, however we can. And so what is the way in? And sometimes it's what you need to stop doing. And if you can come from that space, it's that gateway in. And there's that old Martin Luther King Jr. quote, you don't have to see the whole staircase. Take the first step in faith. When you take the first step, the next step illuminates itself and you'll see that. And so in that same way, when you stop doing the most obvious thing that you know you probably should stop doing, the next most obvious thing shows up. But you get momentum because you realize, oh, wow, whatever that habit was that I stopped doing, I'm noticing some degree of improvement, even if it's 1%, but I'm noticing life's a little bit better. Well, I'm going to stop doing that, but then I'll stop doing this thing too. And then I'll add this thing in that's beneficial. And then it's that snowball. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and life changes. I think it's the Jim Rohn quote or Les Brown, one of those old guys and amazing guys. And they would say, start where you are with what you have. It's do what you can where you are with what you have. Don't worry about the future. Don't worry about where you're not. Don't worry about all the reasons why you can't do it. Do what you can where you are with what you have.
Yeah, right on. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great quote. Well, we're going to run out of time here in a minute on Google.
Okay, perfect.
I want to thank you so much for joining me today and having this great discussion. It's really been awesome.
Thank you so much, Karl. It's been wonderful as well. I've enjoyed being with you and everybody, our listeners.
Awesome. Great. Well, and Happy New Year. Good luck in the new year. Let's talk again soon.
Yeah, Happy New Year to everybody who's listening and to you and your family.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Take care.